Thanks for joining us today to discuss life and godliness with Rick and Angela Carter. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, email us at cartersforhope@gmail.com. That's Carters, the number 4, hope@gmail.com. Any questions you have, we'll discuss in future episodes. Right now, sit back and let's join in on the conversation.
Jerry go that way, and so it's going to go because I need to need anything out. So and so I'm going to get seating in place. This is our apartment in the masonry building, and so we keep just a stop from here, and we are able to stay here when we fly back to Oklahoma City that way, and so anyway, we have this lovely that's it. You're gonna podcast. I was like, no. And we got complaints. Yeah, we got complaints. Yeah, and Christian, we had flown to Florida for the Faith Family Summit, and that was great. I thought it was okay. And we had done a conference Saturday, Sunday, then we drove Monday all the day and drove up to Monday night. Keith and Sherry and we're down there for the Faith Family Summit, and so we took our grandkids out because our granddaughters were for that day and Sunday, and so we took them to dinner that night, and then of course the summit started the next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We were trying to just catch up with a bunch of different stuff, and we just didn't. We were going to record Thursday night, and that was the plan. And then, as we were getting closer through the day, we realized, hey, we fly out at 6 in the morning on Friday, and we didn't verify what time the car rental was. And so this is Maria. And so I called the car rental company, and they opened at 5 a.m. But they're not on site either. And so I said, okay, well, how do we drop it off early? They said, you have to drop it off tonight to drop off early. So that changed all the game plans. We had to go get our stuff and go over, get a hotel room, and return the car. By the time we got to the hotel room, it was 11:30, something like that. Right. And our flight was at 6 a.m. So maybe 3:30. We were going to catch things for transit at 4 a.m. So anyway, and then got up to California, and that's the thing. I found myself was also a thing. We didn't have many attendance, so planning him next year. But it was a great spirit, and we had a great teaching. Yeah, I would agree with that. Even it wasn't really like 2 years ago. Yeah, just a really good time. Just I felt like everything went super smooth. We had people there now from Washington State. We had people there from Ohio. We had people there from represented, and so a young couple that was in the church there in Scotland, Morley Coast Baptist, and Brother Don Cloud's church, and they were getting married, and they told us when we were there they were going to do their honeymoon in Orlando. And it was going to be over the Faith Family Summit. I said, well, if you want to, you're welcome to come to the Faith Family Summit. And so they had on their honeymoon when they came to the conference. And so it was really good. Yeah, it was a blessing. So really, sweet. And so anyway, what was your favorite part of the conference? What do you think? I had to watch the nursery, and it was my grandchildren. Really was just me to figure out feedback from the people that came with how it helped them, and they actually didn't mind that it was long because they felt like they got more help. It was more intimate, so they could feel more candid in questions and things like that. So It was so hard to pause me, just being on a physical fun. Yeah, I enjoy the concert terms. We had, last thing was we had some game activities that the career had everything going on. The teams had everything going on. The juniors had everything going on, but then there were times when everyone was kind of together. We had a couple of services together, and then we had meals where people were, just eating and playing and talking. That was the thing. I mean, it was just a really good time. I thought it was well. And a special thank you to Lockheed and Baptist Church for allowing us to use the facilities there, and to Pastor Stockton for teaching, taught twice, and had great lessons. And so it's just a real great blessing, and we're planning on doing it next year. Learned a lot. Only things we learned a lot. And so this was the first time we've done something like this, and that first time it was learning time. So, to be honest with you, it was most of the time the first time you do something, you always know like called my friends and you philosophy. I don't think we really do our own philosophy. So it's just things we learned. And now we know let's do this, let's do that. We just tried to I thought this period and the flow and everything was really great. It was just adjustments that we make for next year. And so if you're keep your eye out and plan now. And ready throughout the year. There we were in Florida. It was 65, 70 degrees because that cold front came through. Right. But here in Oklahoma, it was like 20 degrees. So would you rather have 20 or 65? And I didn't even miss that. So they seemed everybody's does. So anyway. It was good. And then we were out in California and then went to a conference there at Grace Baptist Church in Corona, California. And man, what a great this meeting. Just a really met with us. And it was one of those services where the Spirit of God just really in a very eminent fashion, and had just the auditory response for an hour or some close to that. It was just it was really good. It wasn't contrived. It wasn't agenda. It just really with the camp meetings. And bad food camp meetings. Camp meetings, but everybody gets all something not everybody. Sometimes at camp meetings, it can be a dwelling. We've been talking and being locked up. But this was not. It wasn't like that at all, but it was just a reminder. Just going down to the altar, and it was just really good. Yeah, absolutely. It was a long introduction. Sorry about that. And our lighting is strange. Right? We have a TV here, so we turn the TV on to get lights. Because most reasons like the other trees because our truck got fixed. And so that was glorious and wonderful, and provided the finances for that. And so it was just miraculous financing and provide provision. And it was a miraculous price that we used to do it. It was like $4,400 that finally get fixed, and God just provided it. And now, but the day that we picked it up, yes, I will tell you there. And well, it's so that was a blessing. And we gone from tree or else again because our was still not fixed. That's been from forever ago. They were back order on the part of this, and then for some reason our was fucked up. Quit working. So we just said, well, we'll drop it off. And they called us today, and everything's fixed. So we're picking it up tomorrow. We're excited. Yeah, I thought you bet a little bit bigger. 0 degrees, fucking body, 0 degrees. I think. But it's been in last day since September. It's been a long haul. Yeah, we were having a couple of days here and there, but only when it was sitting here, we couldn't take it anymore. Anyway, well, we did out to do this. The best one we found out right now. So, all right, our topic today, man. Dealing with young children in the services. Let me start because I feel like I have some really I think minutes side out this one. So what you do is you give them to their mom and you go in the pulpit and you preach. Just I didn't think about it. It worked for me. It worked right for me. So like my sort of ranking. And come on, you see what preaching now. I mean, something has to do. Lots of great games. I already see we are various in the service for the 90s, but we have a couple times a million. Yeah, so we have to go back and way back. I want to keep talking. I don't know if I can remember. The video way back machine is I think they did it all but you nothing forget it. And they see what good job we had at the time on here. So we started as Evan Ken's on these corner went to Mount College. We had 3 kids while we were starting at church. And that was tough. That was tough. Our first one in 21. So we had 3 over 3 ideals in the 90s. 96, 97, 98. No. Yes, June of 96, June of 97, June of 98. And so they were, I mean, baby babies and on 33 in diapers, but only for a short time because eternity was out of diapers pretty quick. Is it a nice meal that talked about our missionary daughter and her diapers, right? My only she was in diapers. Anyways, this is the gas bag, South California. The bishop, okay. But at that age, basically, well, the scene was is Angela playing the piano. No, we did the guitar again. Yeah, because absolutely. So this one's an English to the first day, and I'm rocked in like water for that, and I'm down for the block. Yeah, you know, it's rough. That's all I want. That's all my girl on the side gesture was in the car seat, and I'm toasting it over the every mangoes. So you just find like and so on the I say we find like so when we came to college, that was a nursery. But we determined not to have the kids in the nursery like past. I don't think they've been past 2. I think the 2 we started really well like on Sunday nights. The 2 and 3-year-olds had their own Sunday school and junior church class. But on Sunday night, we were our 3-year-old now. Eternity wasn't not quite. She went to not quite 3 when we came here. And so how did we prepare even at 2? Because we started preparing with that idea. She's going to sit in the service with us. So there's some things that we did. One thing, we would do family exercise. And so there was a training time where we sang songs and I told him Bible story in the sense that there was a time of sitting and listening but then you did something during the day while I was at work. In the kids, I had 3 meals, so I couldn't want devotions because they're studying. So I don't remember if somebody told me it was mom. I don't remember, but somebody told me to practice having quiet time with them. And when we used to, it's like kids consist of 1 minute. Right? Cemetery because of 3. Yeah, 3. So I started just having them sit down quietly on the couch with the book, one of their little reading books or whatever. And I told them, sit for 3 minutes. And no talking, no playing, just sit for 3 minutes. And so we just started off doing that. And it was like 3 minutes a day for a year. And 3 minutes at first. And once they were doing that, it increased a little bit until they were sitting, 5 to 10 minutes.
Yes.
And I know you tell them, like, you know, they be quiet.
Just go look. They put it on play. They can tell it on. They can look at the pictures of the book, but they just gotta talk and play. And because I needed a few minutes to sit down and at least read the Bible verse. I mean, to be spiritual for these children. And then for me. So I needed something that so I read my Bible out and I read, for as long as I can read for the 3 minutes. And then we go about our business and I of course I talk to them about the Bible and stories and things like that about the dating. But as they got or as their seeing skills increase the time limit and until they can sit there for half hour, 25 minutes and read quietly and when they started doing that, it was easy to pull them out and have the same church. Because they can sit up
And you have the first one. The lighter ones, I think, were easier because they had the example of the older.
the oldest one. You try to
seem like you're younger.
Yeah, you try to be like the hard one, just the first one.
He was difficult. Everything else was system.
Yeah.
Well, they never looked at me and audio. Being honest with you, that was like pretty nice.
It's always hard because you don't know what you're doing, and they're learning, you're learning, and so that's the challenge. So,
Yeah. So that was, I mean, when you think about like sitting in the service, I feel like the portion of it contributes so largely to
yes, we'll see those
the sitting portion, right?
and we're going to eat one way, started transitioning in the church, and they sat with me. They were only allowed to color or just sit there quietly. They weren't allowed to play with toys or even
No, yeah. No reason.
Church is a playtime, and it's not. It's a color.
No, it's a color time. It's not just color.
Excuse me. While you're listening,
The other thing about coloring, it seems like, well, that isn't that playing, but coloring can transition into note taking.
yes,
And that actually happened pretty early. It seems like our kids would they would draw pictures of what was preached,
yes,
and then that kind of transitions into, that note taking in church. So we were in Bible college, 99 to 2003, and then we were on the road for a year and a half. And so kids on the road in different churches all the time, very complicated hygiene. So we had what 4 kids traveling in a van, and the van's name was energy. We'd get places that they would have a lot of energy because they hadn't been able to run off. So things didn't.
wow, when we were traveling, every time they would stop and get gas, and in the car, like race around the car so many times, and or back and forth to the from the convenience store to the big room. Yeah, and so we just tried to find ways different games to play, racing, who can win, all that good stuff. So we did that. And then, of course, when we go to a church shifting out of the place, we would send them out to play or different things like that. We would do hikes on the route if we had time. We did hikes on our way to wherever we were going.
And we stopped and saw sites, if there was some site, and we walked, do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we make it as interesting as possible. And then, of course, along the way, just in the different churches, they have the different programs. And so, one of the things that we did the most was if you tribal places and you're in other services, or even if you're not a pastor and your kids go to like Sunday school, junior church, and those kind of things. One of the things that I love when we still do this, I still do this with my grandkids in the church, And God will talk to the kids like, what did you learn in Sunday school class? What did you learn in junior church? Tell me some of the stories who get to talk to. We just start asking lots and lots of questions, and you get to see where you get to see what they're understanding, what they're learning, what they're thinking about, you know, who did you talk to, what friends did you talk to, what did y'all talk about, you get to hear all of those things. Those conversation times are so important.
The funny thing is, whenever you're traveling, like immediately, you've never been to this church before, you've been to one service, and they're just like, my friend,
My boss father,
yeah, my friend said it was so cute and that. And,
it's always just neat because you just get to see where they're thinking, where they're coming from and stuff.
yeah,
It's just neat.
yeah. So, but as far as sitting still in service, by that time, they were real fine, notified.
Yeah.
So when we started doing that, and this is something as a pastor that I feel like is something that works well for a pastor's family. But I think anybody can do this. We started getting them involved in helping with things. So when we would go in church, we wouldn't have to, set things up, like a table display up, or about games, all like that. And during that time, a lot of what I was doing was like vacation Bible schools and Sunday school teacher training and that type of stuff. And I felt like it went very well for the kids to be engaged in helping with the setting stuff up and more, and being a helper instead of just a sitter. A lot, especially like vacation Bible school. There was a lot of repetition because we would do like one vacation Bible school every week, the same theme, the same like sounds, the story, hating it like that. So it was kind of like repetitious for them, but I feel like they enjoyed it. I did really well.
Lessons we see now is just something different, There's more church to do, so, it was just a, what are some of the things that we did? It's special. One is your special, so we got them their own about to their bags, just and notebooks, their own pen.
Yes, yeah.
Those are whatever, and so that they all of their things for church in one place, and it was theirs what they like, trying to make it special, and we did all with our grandkids now. So yeah, so that was another thing, just to make that help them to enjoy going to church and make it special and all that. So
Yeah. So we need transition a little bit from services. I know, by the time they started the church, again, all the kids were, there was, I mean, hard on teaching them to sit, teaching them then we were teaching them to serve and to be involved all those other things. But the other thing about serving, and this is something I think a lot of families miss, is I see this a lot. We went out on visitation every week with our kids, and we went in the nursing home with our kids. We served in the nursing home. We served in, wherever we did that. All of us. We didn't. I didn't, but myself. We served, and that has been, I think, somewhat lost. A lot of people in this idea, like she can't go because she has the kids, and so she stays home with the kids. So he's serving, she's staying home with the kids, and the problem, I do see that as a problem, and here's why: because training your children that life isn't all about them, and ministry is part of that process. We need to allow door knocking, canvassing, wherever we were doing. The kids were out there with us, talking about from the time they were strollers. Angela didn't stay home because we had babies. We carried babies. We pushed the strollers. She went with us. So sometimes I met she and walks along the sidewalk while I went up to the doors. Or I might push the sidewalk and she go up to the door, something like that. I said, this is because it's where I first was like, So, I mean, but we did that together from the time the kids were infants, quite frankly. And it was like we did put our kids in bad weather situations as far as like, freezing cold, and then, we did those things. And, the thing is just that by the time our kids were, 3 years, 4 years old, they loved going out and they loved giving out tracks and no reason. Nobody says no. So it's like a 3-year-old or 4-year-old, they take the track. I mean, they tell me no all day long that, but my kids learned that evangelism is a part of life, and that there's a mindset there. And then going to the nursing homes and serving the older folks. I didn't know because your kids are guilty as right. You can't ignore your kids, and so that's what we're going to talk about next. But the kids uplifting to home. Yeah, what you're also doing is not as ministering to those people with the kids being there, but you're also teaching your kids again, life isn't all about you. Life is about serving others. And that is something that is missing in so many young people. And I don't mean it, and I enjoy watching the young people who feel like that's a responsibility of your parents to teach. And so it has to be taught. And the only way to teach it is to engage in it, to live it. Yeah. And so we always said this phrase, sorry, kids, remember, not like term is that, hey, serving the Lord is an adventure. And, things go wrong. Things are always, there's complications. That's what makes it an adventure, right? And so, it's not easy. And it's complicated, but, also, I think it's the important thing place. Yeah. And that I just said we were going to get to something like brain froze here and forgot what I just said we were going to get to. Something in church. This is another thing that we. This is I don't like it. It might need all of the life of. No comment. All right. So, unfortunately, it's gotten where you see this a lot. It seems like, and I'm not saying that you never saw it before, and it seems like you see it more now, where parents come and the parents want to talk, and the kids are just like running like crazy, like running crazy. I'm not someone living the service. We're talking about what did we do during the service in Bali. Early on in that process, where if the kids were sitting still, if they were starting to make noise, and wait until the whole service was disrupted to take them out and discipline them. Angela took them out, and disciplined them when they started to be, disobedient and not.
Touch them. Okay, remember, in such church, we don't talk to you, don't we? We're going to sit still and sit quiet. What you just say, I made sure they understood what does that mean.
Yeah.
And then I would take them back in. If they did it a second time, then.
When I was sitting with the kids, if when we were gone, because I would take them out.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's I'm not just saying the mom should do that. I'm just saying the mothers and pastor and mommy.
Easy for mom because like the wife thing more now. I see the ladies not even wanting to deal with them. And they just say, I can't deal with them, you deal with them, you discipline them. I discipline the kids, so I discipline them when I was at home, when you were gone, at church, all those things, I think, and I think the reason why the kids got very good for a long time is mom is because they know this is something. Consistency, that discipline stage of, well, this when your mom gets home, and your dad gets home, and your dad gets home. Look, I get it. I said those words too, but at the same time, I also will try to be consistent at home because, and if I wasn't consistent at home, it doesn't matter, right?
And the thing is, when you're training, it takes a lot of time, and you don't get as much done.
No.
But if you don't train, you never get as much done. You're always frustrated. So you're going to trade off. You're either going to say, oh, it's too difficult to mess with it. I just have things I have to do and be frustrated for years and years and years. Or you're going to deal with it and be frustrated for a short period of time. And that's just the reality. And that's when I'm sitting in charge or anything else. So training, instruction, demonstration, participation, observation, correction, right? So we did that with, we've talked about that numerous times. And so, with this, we were going to sit still for this thing. Let's demonstrated by actually sitting still together, right? And that's also participation. I'm saying still, you can say me, you can see, you can do it with me. I'm going to observe you while you do it and correct you when you're wrong. And so that process will. So sitting in church, there's God. And yes, you have to take them out of his home and don't wait, don't wait until the whole service has been disrupted and no one around you got anything out of the service because the kids were acting up and you were trying to just ignore it or ignore the children being bad. Don't ignore it as a young way.
Maybe it's a disobedience,
Right.
delaying discipline. Also,
There's disobedience for sure. Yeah, because there's life.
yeah.
So, but then the other thing is like before that goes sure does. It's natural for kids to play. There's nothing wrong with kids belong. The problem comes in when a parent takes no oversight responsibility for their children.
Yes.
And that unfortunately happens a lot. And so at church, and there is an age in which you say me kids can go outside and play, certainly, but that's not 5, and even probably 7 and down is probably questionable in many ways because they don't use even judgment. They don't use discernment yet to the proper way, especially when they're with their peers and play able to. And 4 and 5-year-olds running, screaming. And then my kids running the church. As pastor, I called down everyone's kids. Everyone. I was a grouchy old man. I was like, dude. No, because I was upset with the kids. Over me because they're seniors in our church. And those kids were and they're not paying attention to the older folks in the church. They're not as sometimes the older folks may not be as stable and and the kid might into them and might knock them over. And then, the last thing that senior needs is, an injury from falling down in church or hurting like a hip or something or whatever. And they say, well, I've never seen a senior have that happen. When it happens. And then in addition to that, and then let's say it doesn't go as far as there's an injury to a senior. I'm just going to tell you a secret. Okay, this is a secret. If you have kids, you do not know the secret I'm just telling you about. The longer you don't have kids, the less patience that you have for screaming your kids. That's just a reality. They love kids.
By the time you have together,
War. We love kids. We love our radios. We love other people's kids. We do. And we're not old yet. Okay. But undisciplined, screaming, yelling, running stuff, it really grates on people who don't have kids anymore, whose kids are grown and or are gone. And then we polite to you and they'll say, oh no, it doesn't bother me because they're trying to be nice to you, but it does bother them. When you need to know that it does bother them. And the thing is that it will hinder the church because it will hinder the seniors wanting to be there in fellowship. And you start losing fellowship because the kids are undisciplined and unruly and loud. And you start to hinder the fellowship. And you're like, well, this is the only time to get fellowship. Okay, I get that. But I will tell you this. If you have kids and they're your responsibility and they're not everyone else's responsibility, it should never be. Now, if other people call your kids down because they see something that you do the same, don't be mad at them. Deal with your kids. Well, But it could not be that other people are constantly having to call your kids down because you're not paying attention to them. Right. So you should be watching them. So how do we do that?
So our church, or how my church was done, our rule was the kids, when they were little, they can go and talk to their friends, but they had to be within my eyesight. So no run. They couldn't run. And so I'm able to see them at all times.
If the rule was, if you can't see me, I can't see you. Well,
And if I had to go fight Zero, the Zero will get
intense fellowship.
intense fellowship programs. Yes, so every time. So we did that. And usually, very well, I mean, of course, at the beginning, they had to learn the altitude limits, but
Yes.
essentially pretty well. And then when we were ready to go, I'll tell you how well it worked. I didn't even have to say, hey, kids, come on. I just had to go like this because they're all supposed to be watching me too.
They were watching nonstop.
Yeah.
And they were the
I just had to tell them, let's go. That just means, let's go to the car. And so a lot of times, I had to do
not. Let me just say this. There's people maybe that will hear this and they'll be like, well, we're not you. And here's what I would say to you. You can be. Yes. Yes. You don't use an excuse. Will excuse bad behavior and undisciplinedness and so forth in your kids by saying, well, I'm not them, so I can't do it. You can do it. Yes, you have to discipline you what works for them. And that's really the reality is the hardest part of disciplining children isn't the children. It's disciplining yourself. And that was something we had to learn. We had to discipline us for training them. We had to discipline us for consistency. We had to discipline us because your kids are going to respond to your inconsistency with rebellion. The kids are going to respond to your lack of discipline with a magnified lack of discipline. So there is this discipline that takes place in the parent first and foremost. And so that attention, because dealing with rules in church is more than just during the service. It's before the service, it's after the service. It's while you're there, they're your responsibility, just like the Lindy. If you were at the,
well, it's just because they, really train them to be in public. And like at church in public, at the grocery store, like at a restaurant in public, at the mall, all of the same principles applied in public.
Right. And here's that interesting thing to me that we always saw when our kids were acting up, right? And so you come a parent, right? Don't act up in public. I cannot even begin to say how many times people came up to us in public and were like, the kids are that is flawless, so we behave.
We're thinking
So good.
they're not just thinking
I'm serious. People would come up and ask us, like, how do you get your kids to listen and sit still and all that? And so you weren't the secret. We told you the secret.
everything nothing's perfect. So we can respond.
I mean,
This is just all we did, and we've seen the results.
yeah, and I will say this. Here's what I love because our kids all doing those same things with their kids. And I think probably better embarrassed than we were. I wouldn't say in many ways, I think we're embarrassed than we were because we're still learning. We were learning a lot when they were young. And my parents were first generation Christians. There was no teaching like that on any of that, and the Angeles didn't grow up in church. So I mean, we were learning and we were having to discipline us about things and that. And I think that there was a lot of discipline that my kids had, our kids had, that they, our grandkids are enjoying to take places. I mean, I'm saying it that way because as I say, I think our kids are maybe early in the parenting than we were. That's what I'm talking about. Early in the parenting, they had way more tools because they were trained that way.
Yeah.
And we made mistakes that maybe they didn't make.
That's true.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean they're perfect parents. They're human. They make mistakes just like anybody. But some of the mistakes we didn't make because we got corrected now, content corrected math. But when we take our grandkids places and we get complimented all the time.
And I'm not disciplining grandkids. I'm going to calm them down. They're always good.
Yeah. And it's not grandparents ignoring things either. I mean, we get complimented all the time. We take our grandkids up because our kids are doing these same things with their kids.
Yeah.
And they're training their kids. And it's, I mean, there's always going to be the 2-year-old that does have a tantrum here and there, and we deal with it, you discipline them, you deal with it properly, and by the time they're, 3, 4, 5, I mean, they're just being good kids. And so what I'm saying is like, it's not like this whole new word for us. It's repeatable. I know it's repeatable because I see my kids repeating it. And so I know that you can take these same ideas and tools and implement them. But like I said, you have to discipline you.
Yeah. That's really what I noticed. When we were first wanted to do this in my church, I was in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out.
It was frustrating.
It was. It was frustrating. I felt like I didn't get to hear a sermon. But even taught me off the way to do, tell me they're going to just keep being consistent. It didn't take as long as it felt.
Feels like it at the moment, right? So
It didn't take as long as it felt. And I wasn't able to listen, or I was able to hear, actually hear and think and meditate and respond because they weren't.
I feel like I like this. Just enjoy. We love them and our kids and every stage. And we love this for the best.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Okay, so if you have a suggestion, podcasts.
Yes, you can send them to carters4@gmail.com, or you can post them on any of the posts on Life and Godliness, which I'm sorry I haven't been able to post here lately. But you can do that, or you can comment on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and
Like, subscribe, and share.
yes, I did you guys. Over the last couple of last couple of years, I've got a few posts on Facebook on just understanding like this.
Yes, it was.
I guess that yeah.
And starting this coming week, we will actually be back in our trailer. And so we systems when it cold. Oh yeah. We look from this morning says is we're recording this late at night on Thursday because we're in California at that meeting and we flew back this morning. And so we got home from all the flights and all that, and then had to run dinner and now we're recording. It was 79. Whatever that is.
And cold 26 degrees.
But God willing, back in the trailer tomorrow. We'll pick the trailer up tomorrow. We'll actually won't be making it until probably Sunday.
Yeah.
But back to, we hope, some consistent
Honestly.
since September. Oh yes, numbers the pretty
Set them down, your judgment gets bad, so you can't leave at any time. Those are my favorite pictures, and I want them.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the ones kind of like they're home. There's not only those titles in life, right? Well, you might as well talk to you next week.